Okay, hi. My name is Peter Christ. I'm with Law Enforcement Against Prohibition. We are a 501c3 nonprofit organization, which tells you a couple things about us. One is, yes, the government knows about us. And two, if you donate money to us, you can write it off on your taxes. So I just thought I'd mention that, just in case you decide when you get home you want to write a check. It costs money to get me here. Okay? We formed this organization in 2002 to bring a voice from law enforcement to the discussion on drug policy in America. What we talk about and what our issue is, and I'll make it real simple right up front, we're the crazy drug legalization people. And just so we're clear, we're not talking about marijuana here, we're talking about all the drugs. I don't want to have to answer that question later. Well, I understand the marijuana issue, but you're not talking about methamphetamine, are you? Yeah, we are. And we come to this conclusion because we are involved in what in fact is a twofold problem in our society that we have called one. I call it the drug monolith. And you've all been educated in this concept. You hear about a drug overdose someplace or some addict neglecting their family because of their drug problem, and we say drug problem. Then we hear about a drive-by shooting someplace or the violence on the Mexican border. And the press reports those things to us as what? Drug-related shootings, okay? So we have this thing where we've lumped all these things together into one thing. This is the drug problem in America. In reality, these are two separate problems. The drug problem, which is the use and abuse of these very dangerous substances, that is primarily an educational and a healthcare problem in our society. The drug violence problem, the shootings, the violence on the Mexican border, that is not the drug problem, that is the drug policy problem. On February 14th, 1929 in Chicago, Illinois, an incident happened. 7 people were mowed down in a garage, and we know that as the St. Valentine's Day Massacre. I've done my research on this and looked at old newspaper articles from that period, and I have found no reporter in America that reported that as an alcohol-related shooting. That was reported as a prohibition problem. And the people's mind were focused, the citizens' minds were focused on the fact that at the root of this problem, of this shooting, of this violence, was this huge underground marketplace that had been created by us when we decided to ban alcohol rather than to regulate and control it. We have the same thing going on in America today. I heard CNN doing a news report on the Mexican border problem use this phrase: drug-fueled violence on the Mexican border. Now, if you hear of a riot in downtown Syracuse and it's reported as an alcohol-fueled riot, what are you going to assume? People were drunk. They got drunk and they went out and they went crazy. And when you hear drug-fueled violence, you think the same thing. In reality, this isn't drug-fueled, this is money-fueled violence. These people are fighting over who's going to control this underground marketplace that we have given them. And let me give you an example of another time this has happened in our history. There used to be a little enterprise that operated in the United States underground, known as the Numbers Racket. The mob ran it and they made millions of dollars on it. And they hired 12, 13-year-old kids who were numbers runners. They would go around and pick up the numbers and the nickel, dimes, and quarters that were bet. And we in law enforcement tried to stamp it out by arresting people, putting them in prison, doing everything we could do, and we couldn't put a dent in it. And then one day it shut down all by itself. Just closed up shop. Now that was the same day that we decided to start a thing called the lottery. Because what we did was we legalized the numbers racket. Now I want to point something out to you. That did not solve our gambling problem. That still exists. We still have people that are dumb enough to take their whole paycheck and blow it on lottery tickets because they think they're going to win the big one and they don't feed their... Those problems still exist. But we don't have 12 and 13-year-old kids running numbers for the mob anymore. Those days are over. That's what legalization is about. It is not about the drug problem. It is about the drug violence problem. And that's something we can actually do something about. The drug problem is fueled by a thing called human desire. People choose to use these drugs. That's something we aren't going to make go away. In fact, I can prove that by going back to the very first attempt that we have any historical record of prohibition. Anybody know what that was, the very first prohibition?
He went around with a statute scaring the crap out of people until the government made alcohol legal.
I'll even go back further than that. Do these words sound familiar to anybody? Do not eat the fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Ever heard that phrase before?
Once or twice.
First prohibition. And also the first example of zero tolerance. Little bite from the apple, big bite, makes no difference, you're out of the garden. How many people had to be watched to make that prohibition work? 2. We know their names, Adam and Eve. How many trees of knowledge were there in the garden? 1. And who was the cop for that one? Should have worked, right? You all seeing eye, you only got to watch 2 people, only 1 tree. I wish I would have had a job like that for 20 years as a cop. That would have been easy. But if you read that story, it tells you why it failed. Because it says in that story that after stealing this guy's stuff, after the Creator created, the Creator granted something to the creation. And that was called free will. The right to choose whether or not they ate from the tree. Because without that, what point was ever putting the tree there? There was no test if they couldn't pick. And that's what drives drug use in our society. Free will. People choosing to do these things, whether or not the government likes it. And I'll give you one more little thing, because we create all these myths in our head. These drug dealers got to be crazy, don't they? They're out there on the street risking life and liberty to sell drugs. Let me tell you something about risking life and liberty. We got a whole bunch of brave men and women over in Afghanistan and Iraq today that are risking their life and liberty every day. And I'm telling you right now, they're getting paid a hell of a lot less money than the drug dealers are. This isn't motivated by money alone. It's motivated by free will. People who believe that they have a right to make this choice for themselves. Law enforcement is here for one thing, and that's to protect you people from each other. We are not here to protect you from yourselves. That's a function of family, church, the educational, and the healthcare system, not the criminal justice system. And just like misusing any tool anywhere, you do damage when you misuse a tool.